The first light of dawn spilled softly over the sleepy fishing village of San Isidro, painting the waves with gold. The salty wind carried the cries of distant seagulls and the gentle clatter of fishing nets being gathered for the morning catch. Amid the rhythm of the ocean, a small, barefoot boy stood on the edge of a weathered wooden dock, his eyes closed, his hands clasped to his chest as he sang. His name was Miguel Santos, and at 10 years old, he sang like an angel who had lost his way to heaven. His voice was clear, trembling yet powerful, an echo of something ancient and beautiful. The fishermen, hardened by years of sea life, often stopped to listen. Some said his voice could calm the ocean, others said it carried the soul of his mother, Rosa, who used to sing lullabies every night until sickness silenced her voice. This morning was no different. Miguel sang, Maria, the words rolling from his tongue like prayer. The ocean breeze tangled through his messy black hair, lifting his voice toward the horizon. Every note shimmered in the air, floating past the rows of nipa huts and coconut trees, carrying warmth into a world that often felt too cold for him. When he finished the song he exhaled slowly, eyes still closed. For a moment everything was quiet except for the waves kissing the shore. Then a frail cough broke the silence. Miguel, a soft voice called from behind him. He turned and saw his mother leaning against the bamboo railing outside their small hut. She was thin, her once bright eyes now dimmed by illness, yet she smiled as though her heart still burned with light. "Mama, you should be resting," Miguel said, running to her side. "I was resting," she replied gently. "But then I heard your voice, my love. It made me feel strong again." She brushed her hand through his hair. "You sound more like an angel every day." Miguel lowered his gaze shyly. "I just want to make you proud." "You already have," she whispered, kissing his forehead. "But promise me one thing, never stop singing, no matter what happens." Miguel nodded, but a flicker of worry clouded his face. The sickness had taken much from them already. Their once modest home was crumbling, their savings long gone. His father, Thomas, worked harder than ever, fishing from before sunrise to long past sunset. But even that wasn't enough to pay for Rosa's medicine. That night, as the stars blinked over the dark sea, Miguel sat beside his father mending torn fishing nets. The old radio crackled in the background, playing a faint opera recording, one of the few that still worked on his father's battered phone. "Papa," Miguel asked, "who's that singing?" Thomas squinted. "That's Luciano Pavarotti's son. He's one of the greatest opera singers in the world." Miguel tilted his head, listening closely. The man's voice soared with such power and emotion that it sent chills down his spine. "It sounds like he's singing to the heavens," he said softly. Thomas smiled faintly, though his eyes were tired. "He is. That kind of singing comes from the soul. You have that too, Miguel. Do you think?" Miguel hesitated, his voice almost a whisper. "Do you think I could sing like that one day, maybe on a big stage?" His father paused, looking out toward the moonlit sea. "Dreams are free, my boy," he said after a moment. "But dreams don't come easy. You'd have to work harder than anyone else. Harder than me." Miguel's small hands balled into fists. "I will, Papa. I'll sing for Mama. I'll sing for you. And one day, the whole world will listen." The old man chuckled softly, shaking his head, but in his heart he felt something stir, a fragile hope he dared not show. Days turned into weeks, and every morning before school, Miguel would walk to the dock and practice singing to the waves. He learned from every sound he could find: church choirs, street performers, even stray dogs barking in rhythm. The villagers started calling him Ang Munting Tenor, the little tenor. Some would leave coins near his feet as he sang, enough for a loaf of bread or a few tablets for his mother. Still, life was the illness grew worse. Some nights, Rosa's coughing filled the air until dawn. Thomas often came home empty-handed, the sea unkind and unforgiving. Yet in those dark moments, Miguel would sing softly to her, the same lullabies she once sang to him. Songs about hope, about love, about never giving up even when the world felt impossible. One evening, a heavy rainstorm battered the village. The wind howled, and waves slammed against the shore. Their hut shook under the force of the storm, water dripping through the thatched roof. Rosa lay weak on her cot, and Thomas struggled to keep the walls from collapsing. But Miguel, he sang. He sang louder than the thunder, his small voice cutting through the chaos. "Why do you sing now, my son?" his mother asked, coughing between words. "Because if I stop you'll stop too," he said tearfully. "And I can't let that happen." That night, when the storm finally passed, Rosa slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. The next morning, Miguel walked to the church to pray. The air was heavy with the scent of wet earth and sea salt. Kneeling before the altar, he clasped his hands and whispered, "Dear God, I don't ask for much. I just want Mama to get better. I'll do anything. I'll sing anywhere. Just please help her." As he rose, he didn't know that his prayer was already being answered, in a way he could never imagine. That very day, a foreign tourist named Claire Donovan, a music teacher from Ireland, visited San Isidro to take photos of the local life. While exploring, she heard a voice unlike any she had ever heard before, soft yet powerful, fragile yet filled with faith. She followed the sound to the dock where Miguel stood, barefoot and radiant under the morning sun, singing Nella Fantasia. Claire froze, tears filling her eyes. "Oh my God," she whispered, pulling out her phone to record. "This boy, this is pure magic." As Miguel sang the final note, the waves seemed to hush in reverence. Claire walked up to him, her hands trembling. "Young man," she said gently, "you have a gift that the world needs to hear." Miguel blinked in confusion. "Me? I just sing for my mama?" Claire smiled. "Then you're already singing for the world." She posted the video online that evening before flying back to Dublin. Neither she nor Miguel knew what was about to happen, but by the next sunrise, the little boy from San Isidro would no longer be just a voice on the wind. He would become a symbol of hope. The morning after the storm, San Isidro was calm again. The fishermen repaired their boats, children chased each other barefoot through puddles, and the sea sparkled like nothing had ever been wrong. But inside the Santos family's small hut, something extraordinary was about to happen. Miguel was helping his father patch an old fishing net when they heard hurried footsteps outside. The village chief, Aling Nina, burst through the door, clutching a phone in her hand, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Tomasa, have you seen this?" she cried breathlessly. "Your boy, he's all over the internet." "What?" Tumas frowned, wiping his hands on his shirt. "What do you mean?" Aling Nina turned the phone toward them. On the cracked screen was a video of Miguel singing on the dock. But this wasn't like the few blurry recordings made by the locals. This one was crisp, bright and alive. It had been posted by a woman named Claire Donovan with the caption, "The most angelic voice I've ever heard from a 10-year-old boy in a small fishing village in the Philippines." Below the video, the numbers kept climbing, thousands, then hundreds of thousands, then millions of views. Comments flooded in from around the world. "This boy gave me goosebumps. I cried hearing him sing. Someone get this child on a big stage, he deserves the world." Miguel's mouth fell open. "Mama, Pa, is that really me?" Rosa covered her mouth with trembling hands, tears filling her eyes. "That's you, my son," she whispered. "That's your voice, reaching hearts across the world." In the days that followed, everything changed. Local reporters came to their village. Strangers arrived just to meet the little boy with the heavenly voice. Then, one afternoon as the family ate their simple meal of rice and dried fish, an email arrived on Claire Donovan's behalf. It was an invitation, a formal letter stamped with the logo of Ireland's Got Talent. They wanted Miguel to audition live in Dublin, all expenses paid. Thomas read the message over and over again. They want you to sing on television, son. In front of judges. In another country." Rosa clutched her chest, tears flowing freely. "Ireland. That's so far away." Miguel looked between his parents, fear and excitement swirling inside him. "Should I go, Mama? I don't want to leave you." She took his hand gently. "My love, this is your chance. You've been singing to the waves for so long. Now, it's time the world hears your song. Go, and wherever you go, carry my heart with you." Her words became the fire in Miguel's chest. A week later, the whole village gathered at the pier to send them off. Claire had arranged for their passports and tickets. Thomas had insisted on selling his small fishing boat to afford clothes and travel expenses, his only possession of real value. "Papa, you didn't have to," Miguel said tearfully as he hugged him. Thomas smiled. "That boat fed us for years. But your voice can feed us forever." Miguel promised he'd make them proud. It was his first time seeing a plane, let alone boarding one. As they walked through the crowded airport in Manila, Miguel clutched his mother's worn rosary and stared wide-eyed at everything. The moving walkways, the shining floors, the endless announcements in strange accents. On the plane he pressed his forehead against the window, watching the clouds float like mountains of light. "Papa," he whispered, "it's like we're flying to heaven." Thomas chuckled. "Maybe we are, son. Maybe your dreams live up here." When they landed in Dublin, cold air wrapped around them like a new world. The grey sky, the smell of rain, the distant sound of street musicians, it was all strange and beautiful. Miguel had never seen so many lights, so many faces of different colors and languages. Claire was waiting for them at the airport, holding a sign that read "Welcome, Miguel." She smiled warmly when she saw them. "There's my little star," she said, kneeling to meet his eyes. "Are you ready to show Ireland what you can do?" Miguel shyly nodded. "I think so, ma'am." She laughed softly. "Don't call me ma'am, call me Miss Claire." She brought them to a small guesthouse in Dublin, near the theatre where Ireland's Got Talent was being filmed. Every night, Miguel practiced in the tiny room while Thomas sat by the window listening proudly. Claire helped him with breathing exercises and stage presence. "What song will you sing?" she asked one evening. Miguel hesitated, then said, "Nessun Dorma." Claire's eyes widened. "That's one of the hardest arias ever written, Miguel. Are you sure?" He nodded firmly. "When I sing it I feel strong." Like. Claire smiled softly. "Then sing it for her." Let them feel what you feel. On the morning of the audition, the sky over Dublin was pale and heavy with mist. The theatre loomed large, glittering with banners and spotlights. Miguel stood backstage holding his father's hand tightly. All around him were other contestants, dancers stretching, comedians rehearsing lines, singers warming up, but Miguel stayed quiet, whispering a small prayer. "Dear God," he murmured, "help me make Mama proud." From the audience came the muffled sound of applause and laughter. The hosts joked, lights flashed, and then a voice announced, "Next up, we have a very special young contestant all the way from the Philippines, 10-year-old Miguel Santos." His heart pounded. He looked at his father. "Papa, I'm scared." Thomas knelt down, holding his shoulders firmly. "Courage isn't the absence of fear, son, it's singing anyway. Now go, sing your truth." As Miguel stepped onto the grand stage, the light hit his face. The audience murmured, so small, so young, standing alone before the massive panel of judges. Among them was Simon Cowell, his sharp eyes studying the boy curiously. "What will you sing for us, young man?" Simon asked. Miguel took a shaky breath. "I will sing Nessun Dorma, sir." A hush fell over the room. The orchestra began to play. Miguel closed his eyes, and then it happened. His voice rose soft at first, trembling like a prayer, then soaring with strength no one expected. Every note carried the weight of his mother's pain, his father's sacrifice, his people's hope. By the time he reached the final Vincer, the audience was on its feet, thunderous applause shaking the hall. Simon Cowell sat frozen, his eyes glistening with tears. He didn't speak. He simply stared as if he'd just witnessed something holy. And backstage Thomas covered his face, crying silently. Miguel looked out over the sea of faces, tears in his eyes, and whispered into the microphone, "That was for my mama back home in the Philippines." That night, as they returned to the guest house, Miguel found hundreds of messages flooding social media. People from all over the world were calling him the little tenor from the islands. But for Miguel, the greatest message came in the form of a video call from home. His mother, lying weakly in her hospital bed, smiled at him through the screen. "You did it, my son," she said softly. "You made them feel what I always knew." And as her voice faded with exhaustion, Miguel held the phone close and whispered, "I'll keep singing, Mama, for you, always." The lights of the Ireland's Got Talent stage were unlike anything Miguel had ever seen. It felt as if he had stepped into another world, a world made of color, sound and dreams. The giant golden logo gleamed across the stage floor, the cameras panned slowly across the cheering crowd, and somewhere beyond the blinding lights, the four judges sat in perfect symmetry behind their desk. Miguel stood in the wings, tiny in his plain white shirt and worn black trousers. His shoes, borrowed from Claire's nephew, were slightly too big, but he didn't care. He kept his mother's rosary wrapped around his wrist like a secret source of courage. His heart thudded so hard he thought the microphone clipped to his collar might pick it up. Claire knelt beside him, adjusting his collar gently. "Remember what I told you, love," she whispered. "Don't sing to impress, sing to tell your story." He nodded, swallowing hard. "For Mama," he said softly. "For Mama," Claire repeated, squeezing his shoulder before motioning to the stagehand. Then he heard his name echo across the vast auditorium. "Next, we have a young boy all the way from the Philippines. Please welcome, Miguel Santos." The crowd applauded politely as he stepped out. Under the bright white lights, Miguel's breath caught. Thousands of faces stared back at him. The audience stretched so far he couldn't even see the end. He blinked, searching for something familiar, then he saw his father sitting among the crew backstage, hands clasped in prayer. He took a deep breath and walked toward the microphone. Simon Cowell leaned forward, his usual skeptical expression in place. "Hello, young man," he said, his British accent crisp. "What's your name, and how old are you?" My name is Miguel Santos, sir," he replied, his small voice trembling. "I am 10 years old." 10, Simon repeated, raising an eyebrow. "And where are you from?" "I come from the Philippines, sir," Miguel said, standing a little taller. "From a small fishing village called San Isidro." "That's quite far," Simon said with a faint smile. "And what are you going to sing for us today?" Miguel's fingers tightened around the microphone. "I will sing Nessun Dorma, by Puccini." The audience gasped collectively. Even the judges exchanged surprised looks. Nessun Dorma, one of the most challenging arias ever written, a song that demands both control and passion far beyond one's years. Simon tilted his head, almost amused. "That's a very big song, young man. Are you sure you can handle it?" Miguel met his eyes with quiet determination. "Yes, sir, I'll do my best." The music began, soft strings swelling through the theater. Miguel closed his eyes, feeling every note like a heartbeat. He remembered the ocean back home, the way the waves rose and fell in rhythm with his breath. He imagined his mother lying in bed, smiling through her pain. He imagined the smell of salt, the warmth of the morning sun. Then he opened his mouth, and sang. The first note soared pure and high, like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. The sound filled the theater instantly, silencing every whisper, every cough. It wasn't just a voice, a spirit. His small frame seemed to hold a cathedral of sound, every syllable painted with devotion and heartbreak.
Nessun dorma.
Nessun dorma. Simon Cowell's skeptical expression faded, his eyes softened, his lips parting slightly in disbelief. Tu pure o principessa. Miguel's Italian wasn't perfect, but the emotion in his voice was real, raw, unguarded. He didn't just sing the words, he lived them. Each phrase carried his longing, his mother's struggle, his father's sacrifice. It was as if his entire life was pouring out through those notes. Halfway through, he faltered for just a second, his voice quivered on a high note, the orchestra kept playing, the audience held its breath, but then Miguel glanced toward the side of the stage, where his father's silhouette stood against the curtains, one hand over his heart. Miguel steadied himself, he inhaled deeply, and from that moment, his voice grew stronger, richer, fuller.
All alba vincer, vincer.
The final note rang through the auditorium like a bell from heaven, pure, piercing, and impossibly long. When it finally faded, the silence that followed was absolute. For a full second no one moved, even the cameraman seemed frozen, and then, an explosion of sound. The audience leapt to their feet, cheering, clapping, screaming his name. People in the front rows wiped their eyes, others raised their phones to capture the moment. The judges rose one by one, applauding in disbelief. Simon Cowell stayed seated for a moment, his head bowed, his hand covering his mouth. When he finally looked up, his eyes were glistening. He clapped slowly, his expression soft and full of something few had ever seen from him, emotion. Miguel stood trembling on the stage, staring out at the sea of faces. He had never seen so many people smile at once. He could hardly believe this was real. His chest rose and fell rapidly, his little hands were shaking. "Wow," said Amanda Holden, one of the judges. That was unbelievable. You're 10 years old, and you sing like you've lived 1,000 lifetimes. Sofia Vergara, her voice trembling with emotion, said, "You sang from your soul, Miguel. You made me cry. You made everyone in this theater feel something pure." Miguel smiled shyly, his eyes glistening. "Thank you, ma'am." Then Simon leaned toward his microphone. The crowd went quiet again. "Miguel," he said softly, "I've been doing this a long time. I've heard opera singers, pop stars, legends. But what you just did, I don't think I've ever heard anyone sing like that at your age." He paused, his voice catching slightly. "You didn't just sing the song, you lived it. You made all of us feel your heart." A tear rolled down Simon's cheek before he could stop it. The cameras caught it, the exact moment the world's toughest judge was moved to tears by a 10-year-old Filipino boy. Miguel's lips trembled. "That was for my mama," he whispered into the microphone. "She's sick back home. I sing to make her strong." The crowd erupted again, louder than before. People cheered his name, some shouted, "We love you,
Miguel!"
Others simply clapped through their tears. Sophia reached toward the golden buzzer, her hand hovering over it. She looked at Simon, then back at Miguel, her eyes filled with certainty. "You said you sing to make your mother strong," she said, smiling through her tears. "Well, tonight, you made all of us strong too." And with that, she slammed her palm down. The golden buzzer lit up, and golden confetti burst from the ceiling, cascading down around Miguel like falling stars. The music swelled as he gasped, covering his mouth with both hands. Thomas ran onto the stage, tears streaming down his weathered face. Miguel turned and father and son embraced tightly amid the shimmering rain of gold. The judges stood and clapped. The hosts rushed out, laughing and crying at the same time. The crowd chanted his name again and again. Miguel! Miguel! In that moment, he wasn't just a poor boy from a fishing village. He was a symbol of hope, of love, of every dream that had ever seemed too far away. As the golden lights flickered and the applause thundered on, Miguel looked up at the ceiling. Beyond the cameras, beyond the confetti, as if gazing straight toward heaven, softly he whispered, "We did it, Mama." And somewhere across the ocean, a mother lying in a small bamboo hut smiled through her tears, whispering back to the screen playing the broadcast, "Yes, my son, you did." For a long, golden moment, time seemed to stop. The confetti swirled in the air like rain made of sunlight, each shimmering piece catching the light before drifting down to the stage. Miguel stood frozen in the middle of it all, his small hands trembling, his eyes wide with disbelief. His chest rose and fell as though his heart was too big for his body. Sofia Vergara's palm still rested on the golden buzzer, the golden glow reflecting in her tear-filled eyes. She was smiling through her emotion, shaking her head as if even she couldn't believe what she'd just done. The entire theater was on its feet. The audience was roaring, stamping, clapping, some cheering, others wiping their faces. A few even clasped their hands together in silent prayer, overcome by the pure sacred power of what they'd witnessed. Miguel turned slowly, his gaze sweeping over the sea of faces. Then his eyes found his father standing just offstage, hand over his heart, tears streaming freely down his weathered cheeks. "Papa," Miguel whispered into the mic, his voice breaking. "We did it. That was all it took." Thomas couldn't hold back anymore. He rushed onto the stage, ignoring the cameras and producers waving their arms, and gathered his son into his arms. Miguel clung to him tightly, burying his face in his father's chest. The crowd erupted again, this time softer, less noise, more heart. A murmur of awe rippled through the audience as they watched the father and son embrace under the golden rain. Simon Cowell stood up, slowly, deliberately. For a man known for his composure, it was rare, almost historic, to see tears glistening on his cheeks. He removed his earpiece, laid it on the desk and began clapping. Not the perfunctory showbiz applause he usually gave, but something deeper, real admiration. When the noise quieted just enough, he leaned toward the microphone. "Miguel," he began, his voice rough with emotion. "I've been sitting in this chair for many, many years. I've seen the biggest stars walk across this stage. I've seen performances that made the world stand still. But I don't think I've ever experienced something quite like what you just did." Miguel looked up, still nestled in his father's arms. "You didn't just sing," Simon continued. "You felt every note, you made us feel it too. That's what real music is. It's not about perfection, it's about connection. And tonight, you connected the entire world to the heart of a 10-year-old boy from the Philippines." The audience broke into thunderous applause again. Sophia dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Amanda Holden smiled warmly, nodding in agreement. "You're not just a singer, Miguel," she said, her voice trembling. "You're a storyteller. You told us about love, about faith, about what it means to hope when you have nothing else. And I think your mother must be the proudest woman in the world right now." At those words, Miguel's lips trembled. He brought the microphone close, his voice barely above a whisper. "She's sick back home," he said softly, "but I know she's watching, and I sang for her." A quiet fell over the room. Even the audience, still buzzing with energy, went still. The camera zoomed in on his face, the glimmer of tears, the confetti caught in his hair, the trembling courage in his small frame. Sophia covered her mouth, whispering, "Oh my God." Then, without hesitation, she walked across the stage, and knelt in front of Miguel. She gently brushed some confetti from his hair and took both of his hands in hers. "You are a gift to this world," she said. "Never forget that. You have something inside you that can heal people's hearts." Miguel nodded, tears spilling freely down his cheeks. The hosts, Ant and Dec, stepped forward, their usual playful energy replaced by visible awe. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dec said into the camera, his voice thick with emotion, "this is what this show is all about, moments like this. A young boy with a dream singing from his soul, reminding us all what hope sounds like." An Ant placed a hand on Miguel's shoulder. "How do you feel, champ?" Miguel looked around, at the confetti still falling, at the smiling judges, the roaring audience, and finally at his father. "I feel," he paused, searching for words, "I feel like my mama's voice is singing with me." The crowd cheered again, softer this time, gentler, as if afraid to break the magic. Simon looked toward the production booth and signaled the orchestra. "Let's give him another moment," he said. The lights dimmed, the golden confetti sparkled under the soft spotlight. The orchestra began to play a delicate reprise of Nessun Dorma. Miguel stepped forward, slowly, as if walking through a dream. He raised the microphone once more and began to sing the final verse. Not for competition, not for cameras, but for love. His voice floated through the air, wrapping the entire theater in warmth. It wasn't as powerful as his first performance, but it was even more beautiful, because it was pure gratitude. When he finished, Simon stood again and clapped above his head. Sophia joined him, then Amanda. Backstage, the producers and crew wiped their eyes. Even the cameraman, usually so professional, couldn't stop smiling through tears. Miguel looked down from the stage, his face glowing with childlike wonder. "Is this real?" he whispered to his father. "Yes, son," Thomas said, holding his shoulders proudly. "This is what happens when you sing from your heart." That night, the clip of Miguel's golden buzzer moment spread across the internet faster than anyone could have imagined. Within hours, it had millions of views. People all over the world shared it with captions like, "The boy who made Simon Cowell cry," and, "Voice from heaven." Celebrities tweeted about him. News anchors replayed the clip, their voices cracking as they described his story. And in a small hospital room in the Philippines, Rosa watched it too. Her nurse had propped up a tablet by her bedside. The moment the golden confetti began to fall, Rosa's frail hands flew to her mouth. Her eyes overflowed with tears, not of sadness but of indescribable joy. She pressed her palm against the screen, whispering, "My son, my beautiful boy." When Miguel's voice filled the room again, she closed her eyes and smiled through her tears. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "You made the world hear your song." Later that night, after the show, Miguel and his father sat quietly in their hotel room. The noise of the world seemed far away. Miguel held the golden buzzer confetti in his hands like a treasure. "Papa," he said softly, "do you think Mama saw it?" Thomas smiled. "She didn't just see it, son. She felt it." Miguel lay down, still holding the confetti. "I'm going to bring her here one day. When she's better, she'll sit in the front row and watch me sing again." His father turned off the lamp, his heart full. She will, Miguel, she will. Outside the window, the Dublin sky glowed faintly gold, as if reflecting the confetti that had rained down earlier, and somewhere across the sea under the same stars, Rosa whispered a prayer of gratitude. Her little boy had touched the world, and in doing so, he had healed her heart. Weeks passed since that unforgettable golden buzzer night. The world had not stopped talking about Miguel Santos, the 10-year-old boy from the Philippines who sang with the heart of an angel and the courage of a warrior. His video had broken records across every social media platform. It wasn't just a performance anymore. It had become a symbol of love, hope, and the unbreakable bond between a son and his family. Everywhere Miguel went, people recognized him. Children called his name in the streets, fans asked for photos, and news anchors described him as the miracle voice from Manila. But Miguel remained the same gentle, humble boy who once sang in a small church for donations. His father made sure of that. Every morning before interviews or rehearsals, Thomas reminded him, always sing for God, for your mama, and for the people who need hope. Fame fades, son, but kindness doesn't. Miguel nodded every time. He still called home every night to speak to his mother, even though her voice was weak. Rosa's illness had worsened, but her spirit stayed strong. She never let her son hear pain in her tone. My little angel, she'd whisper through the phone. Every note you sing gives me strength. I'm so proud of you. Sometimes Miguel would close his eyes and imagine her sitting by the window, listening to his voice as the golden sunset touched her face. Those calls gave him purpose. They reminded him that his music had to be more than sound, it had to be healing. Then came the day of the AGT, the Champions Grand Finale. Miguel had been invited back to perform one final time, not as a contestant but as a guest artist. It was the performance that would define his story, and the producers wanted it to be something special. What will you sing, Miguel? Asked Sofia Vergara during rehearsal. You can choose any song in the world. Miguel thought for a long time. Then, with quiet confidence, he replied, a song I wrote for my mama. The judges exchanged surprised looks. Simon leaned forward. You wrote a song? Miguel nodded shyly. Yes, sir. It's called Until I See You Again. I wrote it after my mama got sick. I promised I'd sing it for her when I was brave enough. Simon didn't say anything for a moment. Then he smiled, that rare, genuine smile that broke through his usual sternness. Then, Miguel, the stage is yours. The night of the finale arrived. The theater was bathed in soft golden light. The air buzzed with anticipation as celebrities, journalists, and fans filled the seats. The stage crew moved silently, setting up a single stool, a microphone, and a soft spotlight. Backstage, Miguel sat holding his mother's old rosary in his hands. He whispered a small prayer under his breath. Please, Lord, let her feel this. His father knelt beside him. She's watching, Miguel. I just spoke to your tita. She's awake and waiting in front of the TV. Miguel's throat tightened. Then I'll make her proud. When his name was announced, the crowd erupted in applause. The familiar theme music of America's Got Talent played and Miguel stepped into the light. But this time there was no orchestra, no dramatic introduction, just a boy, his microphone, and his heart. He looked out at the sea of faces, then up toward the heavens. The first notes began. The song started softly, almost like a whisper carried on the wind. When the night is cold and I can't find home, I close my eyes and hear your tone. Your voice is the light that guides me through pain. Until I see you again. The theater fell utterly silent. The audience hung on every word. It wasn't a performance, it was a prayer. Each lyric flowed with emotion so raw, it felt like time itself had paused to listen. As Miguel sang the chorus, his voice cracked slightly, not from lack of control, but from the truth breaking through. I'll keep singing, Mama, through the storm and rain. I'll keep shining, through joy and pain. You're the song that lives in my heart's refrain, until I see you again. And tears streamed down his cheeks. The camera zoomed in. The world could see it, could feel it. Sophia pressed her hands to her chest, unable to hold back her sobs. Amanda Holden's mascara ran down her face as she whispered, he's singing straight to heaven. Simon Cowell leaned forward, elbows on the desk, eyes glistening. There were no critiques this time, no comments, only reverence. Back in the Philippines, in a small hospital room with flickering fluorescent lights, Rosa lay in bed, weak but smiling. The television in front of her showed her son under the golden spotlight. Nurses stood quietly by the doorway, moved to tears. When Miguel sang the bridge, his voice swelled with power far beyond his years. The world may change, the stars may fall, but your love remains through it all. I'll carry your name, I'll carry your grace, until I see your face. At that very moment, a nurse touched Rosa's hand. He's singing for you, she whispered. Rosa's eyes glistened. Yes, she breathed. I can feel it. Miguel reached the final line, his voice trembling but filled with light. Until I see you again. He let the last note linger in the air, pure, haunting, eternal. Then silence. A silence so powerful, it felt sacred. For a heartbeat no one moved. Then the entire theater rose as one, breaking into thunderous applause. People cried openly. Some hugged strangers beside them. Simon Cowell stood, tears glinting in his eyes, and whispered into the microphone, "That was not just a song. That was love made sound." Sophia was sobbing uncontrollably now. She stepped onto the stage again, embraced Miguel tightly, and whispered, "Your mama must be the proudest woman in the universe." Miguel smiled through tears. "She is," he said softly. "I know she is." That night, the world didn't just see a singer, it saw a miracle. The video of Miguel's final performance broke every viewing record in AGT history. Millions around the world said it helped them heal, forgive, and believe again. But somewhere across the ocean, Rosa quietly took her final breath while the applause still echoed through the television speakers. Her last smile was gentle and peaceful, because she had seen her son fulfill his promise. When Thomas received the news, he wept silently. Miguel held his father's hand and whispered, "She heard it, Papa." "I know she did." Weeks later, Miguel performed at his mother's memorial service in Manila. He sang the same song, this time not for a competition but as a farewell. As his voice rose through the air, sunlight filtered through the church's stained glass, bathing everything in gold. The world would later call it, the song that changed everything. But to Miguel, it was simply the song that brought his mother home. And from that day on, every time he stepped onto a stage, whether in London, New York, or back in his small town in the Philippines, he would whisper before singing, "For you, Mama. Until I see you again." And somewhere beyond the veil of the clouds, Rosa would smile, proud of the little boy whose voice touched the heavens.